After her disappearance, I wrote a short note, and with it turned our whole life upside down. It started with something small. It always does. That morning felt like any other. I had gotten up early to make coffee while Nora was still asleep, the house still heavy with the quiet weight of morning fog. I remember the clinking of mugs, the subtle hum of the dishwasher, and the sound of water running upstairs. Nothing seemed out of place until I went looking for my charger. I knew Nora kept a spare in her handbag. I've borrowed it a dozen times before, and she's never minded. But this time, when I unzipped the front pocket, the first thing I noticed wasn't the charger. It was a thin white envelope, sticking halfway out. I didn't even have to pull it all the way out to see what it was. A parking citation from the city, dated 3 days ago, issued on Piermont Street, right outside the Harborview Inn. My first thought wasn't suspicion, it was confusion. We don't live anywhere near Piermont, and I couldn't remember the last time Nora had any reason to be on that side of town, let alone parked outside a boutique hotel. She hadn't mentioned anything. I told myself not to jump to conclusions. Maybe she had lunch there with a coworker. Maybe she was meeting someone for a freelance gig. She occasionally took those on when work was slow. But when I reached back in the bag to find the charger, I found something else that stopped me cold. A keycard, black and silver, with the Harborview's logo printed across the front in stylized cursive. The charger suddenly didn't matter. I just stood there, holding it between my fingers, staring at it like it might explain itself if I looked long enough. The Harborview is a nice place. Upscale. Romantic. It's the kind of place people go for a weekend escape or a discreet rendezvous. I should know. Nora and I stayed there once for our anniversary years ago. That memory came back now with an ugly twist, like a bitter aftertaste. I could still picture the white sheets, the little chocolate truffles on the pillows, the way she laughed when the concierge gave us complimentary champagne. I placed the keycard back into the handbag exactly how I found it and zipped it shut. I didn't want to believe what I was already starting to suspect. I needed more than coincidence. But the day didn't let up. Later that afternoon, as I was tidying up the living room, something I do more out of habit than need, I picked up her long beige overcoat from the back of the couch. It had been draped there for 2 days. As I slung it over my arm, something small slipped out of the pocket and fell to the floor with a soft tink. It was a men's cufflink, sleek, silver, with a single engraved letter, B. My heart stuttered. I picked it up, turning it over in my hand, as if some other explanation might jump out at me. It wasn't mine. I don't even wear cufflinks, haven't since our wedding, and even then, they were plain black ones. Nora doesn't have any male family nearby, and none of our friends had been over recently, certainly not anyone who would have left behind something so personal. And then came the scent. When I lifted the coat to hang it properly, I caught a subtle but unmistakable whiff of cologne. Not mine, not even similar to mine. It was musky, fresh, expensive. I didn't recognize the scent, but it lingered like a fingerprint. I stood there, alone in the hallway, holding her coat like it might confess something if I just waited long enough. My mind was racing, but I didn't know what to do with the thoughts. I didn't want to be the jealous husband. I didn't want to spiral. I wanted to believe there was some explanation, something that made all of this benign. That night, I tried to bring it up gently. We were in the kitchen, both of us pretending to focus on dinner. She was chopping onions with robotic precision, her phone face down on the counter like it always was lately. I leaned against the island and said, trying to keep my voice casual, "Hey, I saw a parking ticket in your bag this morning. Piermont Street?" She didn't look up. "Yeah, but don't remind me. I totally forgot to pay that." I waited. "That's near the Harborview, right?" That's when she looked up. Her hands froze mid-chop, and I could see her shoulders stiffen just a fraction before she set the knife down and turned toward me. "Yeah, I think so. Why?" I shrugged. "Just wondering. You were there recently?" She blinked, then gave me a tight smile. "I had lunch with Erica from work. She wanted to try that little seafood place by the water." "Why?" I could feel her energy shift, like she was suddenly on alert, defensive. "Just asking," I said. Her eyes narrowed. "Ryan, are you going through my stuff now?" It wasn't like that. I was looking for the charger, and what? You decided to snoop? I wasn't snooping. Nora. There was a hotel keycard in there. Silence. Her jaw tightened. Seriously. I wasn't trying to start something. What's going on? She exhaled sharply and turned away, picking up the knife again. Unbelievable. So now I can't even have lunch with a coworker without being interrogated? Nora, it wasn't just lunch. There's a hotel key. And a cufflink. Oh my God. She slammed the knife down again, harder this time. You really think I'm cheating on you? I'm not accusing you of anything, I said, though my voice betrayed me. I'm trying to understand what all this means. It means you're letting your imagination run wild, she snapped. Do you even hear yourself? You're building this whole paranoid fantasy in your head over a parking ticket and some cologne. I didn't say anything about cologne. That stopped her. For a second, she went still, her lips parted slightly like she was about to speak. Then, just as quickly, she recovered. Whatever. You know how it is, those hotel restaurants are packed, people brushing past you. It's not that deep, Ryan. She tried to laugh. It sounded like glass breaking. I'm sorry, I said, quieter now. I didn't mean to upset you. She turned back to the cutting board. No, of course you didn't. You just thought it would be fun to go through my things and accuse me of something disgusting. I wasn't accusing. I just wanted to talk. Well, next time maybe try trusting me instead. That ended the conversation. She stayed in the kitchen a while longer, making a show of chopping vegetables like nothing had happened. I watched her closely. She wasn't crying. She wasn't angry, not really. She was calm. Too calm. And that scared me more than anything. That night in bed, I laid next to her and stared at the ceiling. She had fallen asleep quickly or pretended to. I couldn't tell anymore. The cufflink was still on my nightstand. The keycard was back in her bag. She had said it was all a misunderstanding. A mix-up. That I was being paranoid. But things don't just fall into place like that. Not all at once. A hotel key. A citation on the same block. Cufflink. A strange new cologne. If it had been one thing, maybe I could have let it go. But it wasn't. It was several, strung together with invisible thread. And no matter how hard she tried to deflect it all back onto me, make me the suspicious, controlling husband, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Something had changed. That was the first time I realized I was no longer being told the truth. And I think deep down, Nora knew it too. The mind's a strange thing. Once a thread of doubt is pulled, every memory you've tucked away, every off moment you ignored, starts crawling back like it's been waiting for you to wake up. After the Harborview keycard and that cufflink with the letter B, I couldn't unsee things anymore. I tried. For about a day, I convinced myself it was paranoia, that maybe I was reading too much into things. But then the flood came. Weeks of small details I had brushed off, now slamming together into something I couldn't ignore. Started with her phone. Nora used to leave it lying around. On the kitchen counter. Nightstand. Coffee table. She never cared if I saw her texts or calls. We both had the same passcode for years, her idea, actually. But sometime last month, that changed. She changed her code without telling me. I didn't notice right away. I only found out when I tried to play music from her phone to our speaker. Like I always did. The new passcode lock flashed red after I mistyped twice. She saw me holding it and snatched it from my hands so quickly, I barely had time to react. "Why are you on my phone?" she asked. "Just trying to put on that playlist," I said, blinking. "I could have done that. You don't need to go through my stuff." That word again. Stuff, like I was violating her privacy just by existing in the same room. I let it slide at the time, but it stuck with me, especially when I realized I hadn't seen a single notification pop up on her screen in over a week. No texts, no emails, not even calendar reminders. Either she wasn't using her phone at all, or she'd silenced everything. Then there were the nights. She started taking emergency shifts at the hospital again. Nora's a nurse, and while on-call coverage isn't uncommon, it used to be rare. Suddenly, she was gone 2-3 nights a week. Always last minute. always vague about which floor, which patient, which supervisor. She'd come home exhausted, and yet, I couldn't help noticing. She didn't look like someone who'd spent 12 hours on her feet. One morning, she came home around 5:30 a.m., claiming she had stayed to monitor a patient in post-op. I believed her until I found the taxi receipt. She'd left it folded in the laundry basket. The timestamp read 2:08 a.m., and the drop-off location was nowhere near the hospital. Not even in the same zip code. Some unfamiliar street on the west side, near the waterfront. She never mentioned being there. A week later, there was another receipt. Different cab company. Same pattern. I didn't confront her, not yet. I kept collecting things like I was assembling a puzzle, only I wasn't sure what the picture was going to be. Every time I thought I had enough to raise a red flag, I'd tell myself, wait, one more piece. One more detail to prove I wasn't crazy. But the pieces didn't stop coming. Her bank statements were next. We still had a joint account, though she'd been using her personal card more lately. I'd logged in to check our autopay bills and noticed a string of charges that made my stomach twist. Bar Argyle, Emerson's, Eastwood Winehouse, Blue Grove Taproom, all places downtown that we hadn't been to together in over a year. Sometimes 2 charges in the same night. Different dates, different times. Each one matched up with a shift she claimed to be covering. When I asked her casually if she ever went out with coworkers after work, she brushed it off. Not really, she said. Too tired after shifts. I usually just grab takeout and head home. I nodded like I believed her, like I hadn't just stared at her account showing a $76 tab at a cocktail bar with a rooftop patio. I started noticing more subtle things too. The perfume she used changed. Nora had worn the same scent for years. Lavender and bergamot, subtle and clean. Then, seemingly overnight, it became something bolder. Smoky, almost spicy. Not overpowering, but different. When I asked if she'd changed fragrances, she said no. But I know her smell. I would have known it in a room full of strangers with my eyes closed. And this wasn't it. Then there were the clothes. One Saturday morning, I was tossing a load of laundry into the machine when I found a t-shirt I didn't recognize. Not mine. Black, oversized, with a faint bleach mark on the hem. A men's size large, tucked in with her yoga pants. No label, no familiar brand. When I asked, she glanced at it and said, "Oh, must be from the hospital. I probably borrowed it during a spill or something." That might have worked, if the hospital didn't provide their own scrubs for exactly that reason. And even if it had been a spill, why would she bring it home? More and more, I noticed her stepping out on the balcony to take calls. Quick, hushed conversations with no context. I'd hear her laugh in this soft, almost unfamiliar way. Then she'd come back inside like nothing happened. And when I asked who it was, she'd say, "Just Erica," or "Just Sam from work." Always just. Always nothing. She also started using her laptop less and her tablet more. And her cloud storage changed. Folders reorganized. Things moved. I only discovered that because we used to keep shared vacation albums. I'd gone in one evening to find pictures from our Maui trip and noticed a new folder named Scans. Do not delete, that was locked with a password. She had never locked folders before. I told myself there could be explanations for all of it. But when I stood back and looked at everything, it painted a picture I couldn't ignore anymore. A hotel keycard, cufflink, cologne, suddenly locked phone, emergency shifts that didn't check out, cab receipts from strange neighborhoods, upscale restaurants she claimed not to visit, a stranger's t-shirt in our laundry, new perfume, new patterns, distant eyes, and me, watching it all unfold from the passenger seat of my own life. The worst part wasn't the possibility she might be cheating. It was the way I started to doubt myself. There were nights I stood in the bathroom, gripping the edge of the sink, wondering if I was losing it. If maybe I was overanalyzing everything because I couldn't handle the idea that something was off. That she was off. I kept telling myself it's probably stress. That was the excuse we used for everything lately. Why we weren't int asterisk mate. Why she was tired all the time. Why she didn't laugh at my dumb jokes anymore. Why she stayed in her office with the door shut when I made dinner. "Work's just been crazy," she'd say, rubbing her temples. And for a while I believed it. I wanted to believe it. I loved Nora. I still do, I think. Or at least I love the version of her I remember, the one before all this started. But I couldn't lie to myself anymore. The facts were all there. I just hadn't wanted to see them lined up like dominoes. The tension between us grew. Even when we weren't arguing, there was a pressure in the air, like we were both waiting for something to snap. I started walking around the house like I was stepping on glass, trying not to trigger another fight, trying not to give her another reason to accuse me of being paranoid, of not trusting her. But trust doesn't erode all at once. It wears down in pieces. A missed call, an unexplained receipt, a lie about a night shift, a folder with a password. All of it chipped away at me until I wasn't sure if I was being protective or just trying to protect what little we had left. And deep down, I think I already knew the answer. This wasn't just a rough patch. This wasn't miscommunication or burnout. This was something else. Something real. Something I was going to have to face sooner than I wanted. There's a moment when suspicion becomes certainty, and once you cross that line, there's no way back. No way to unknow what you've seen. No way to pretend that things might still be okay. For me, that moment came on a Tuesday night. I was sitting at the kitchen table, alone, with the soft hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. Nora had texted me an hour earlier that she was staying late for another shift. No specific reason. No explanation. Just the usual, "Don't wait up." Things ran long. But I was tired of waiting. Tired of wondering. So I opened her cloud account. We had set it up together a few years back. Syncing calendars, photos, even find my phone in case one of us lost it. At the time, it felt like a convenience. A sign of trust. A way of saying we're in this together. Now, it was the last place I had left to search. Her location history was still active. I stared at the timeline, my heart pounding faster with each click. It showed her movements from the last week, hospital, grocery store, coffee shop. All normal, except for tonight. At 10:14 p.m. Her location pinged at Harborview Inn. Again. She checked in around 9:45 p.m. and hadn't moved since. I zoomed in, watching the blue dot sit still like a lie refusing to move. I told myself I needed to be sure. That maybe there was an innocent reason. Maybe it really was just a restaurant visit, a meeting, anything. But that voice in my head, the one I'd been ignoring, finally screamed loud enough. I grabbed my keys and drove. The Harborview sat on a quiet waterfront street, tucked between a row of galleries and a wine bar. It was the kind of place that felt too expensive for what it offered: privacy, elegance, discretion. The front desk glowed warmly under soft yellow light, like it welcomed secrets more than guests. I parked around the corner, my hands shaking as I stepped out into the night. I could barely feel the cold air on my skin. I wasn't thinking. I wasn't planning. I just knew I had to go in. Inside, everything was too calm, too clean. The kind of atmosphere where you whisper without meaning to. I approached the front desk and asked as casually as I could, "Hey, my wife said she checked in earlier. I just wanted to grab the spare key." The clerk didn't even blink. Name: Nora Temple. A few taps on the keyboard. Then, room 412. Checked in at 9:42 p.m. The confirmation hit like a punch to the gut. But I kept my face neutral. I even smiled. "Thanks." She offered me a keycard. I took it. I climbed the stairs instead of using the elevator. I didn't trust myself in a confined space. My body was moving on autopilot, every footstep echoing louder than the last. When I reached the 4th floor, I paused in front of room 412, heart pounding so loud I thought someone might hear it. I listened. Nothing. Just soft music. Muffled laughter. Then I heard her, Nora, laughing, followed by a man's voice, low, casual, familiar. I didn't recognize the words, just the tone. Comfortable. Warm. Int asterisk mate. I didn't knock. I slid the keycard in, heard the beep, and pushed the door open. The world didn't end. It didn't explode. It just stopped. Nora stood there, barefoot in a white hotel robe, her hair damp, glass of wine in one hand. She froze when she saw me, eyes wide, color draining from her face. Behind her, a man was buttoning his shirt, half-dressed, half-smirking. He looked up slowly, like this was some scene he'd played out before. And in that moment, everything broke. No one said anything. We just stared at each other, me holding the door open, her holding a lie in her hand like it had weight, like she didn't know where to set it down. I don't remember how long we stood like that. Could have been 10 seconds or 10 years. She was the first to speak. "Ryan, I can explain." "Explain? Explain what? That you checked into a hotel under your name? That you brought someone else here in the middle of the night? That you stood in front of me in a robe while he got dressed behind you?" I didn't say a word. I just looked at her. Really looked. And what scared me wasn't the betrayal. It was the calmness in her face. Like part of her had been waiting for this moment. Like some small, guilty part of her was almost relieved to stop pretending. "I didn't plan for this to happen," she said quietly, setting the wine glass down. The man behind her, still silent, walked toward the door. He gave me a half-hearted nod, like I was a stranger in his way. I didn't move. I looked him in the eye. He looked away first. He left without another word. And then it was just me and Nora. She reached for me slowly. "Please, just let me explain." I stepped back. "Explain what, Nora?" I said, voice shaking. "That everything I suspected is true?" She flinched, as if that hurt more than it should have. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. But she did. Over and over again. With every lie. Every excuse. Every time she looked me in the eye and told me she was somewhere else. With someone else. "How long?" I asked. She hesitated. "How long?" She swallowed hard. "A few months." I nodded. My legs felt numb. "Does he know you're married?" "Yes," she said too quickly. "So he didn't care?" She didn't answer. That said enough. I felt the heat in my chest again. But I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't break. I just stood there. "You said it was work," I said, the words cracking. "You told me you were at the hospital." She looked down. "You told me I was being paranoid." "I know." "You told me to trust you." "I know," she whispered. Everything I thought I knew about us. The quiet nights, the inside jokes, the plans we made for the holidays. Felt fake. Thin. Like paper set on fire. "I think you should stay here tonight," I said. "What?" "I'm not going home with you. Not tonight. Maybe not ever." "Ryan, please." But I'd already turned toward the hallway. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. What I saw in that hotel room told me everything I needed to know. I drove home that night in silence. My hands locked on the steering wheel like they were holding me together. The city blurred past in streaks of yellow streetlights and red brake lamps, but nothing felt real. It was as though I was watching someone else's life unravel through a car window. Every breath hurt. Every thought felt jagged. The image of Nora in that white robe kept replaying, like a looping film I couldn't shut off. Her damp hair, his half-buttoned shirt, my own face reflected in the hotel room mirror, a stranger looking back at me. I didn't go inside right away when I got home. I just sat in the driveway, the engine ticking as it cooled. Our apartment's windows glowed faintly, warm, familiar. But the warmth felt fake now, like a set piece from a play. I couldn't shake the thought. How many times had she walked through that door after nights like tonight? How many times had I kissed her hello while someone else's scent clung to her? When I finally stepped inside, the apartment felt wrong. Not messy, not disturbed, just wrong. The air itself felt heavier. Nora's coat was still on the hook, her favorite throw blanket still folded neatly on the couch, a candle half burned on the coffee table. All the ordinary artifacts of our life together looked like props from a story that had ended hours ago. I closed the door softly and leaned against it, staring at everything like I was seeing it for the first time. I didn't sleep. I didn't even sit. I just started walking from room to room, pulling open drawers, sliding aside papers, as if the walls themselves might confess. Some part of me still wanted to believe that the hotel was an aberration, a single catastrophic mistake. But another part, the louder part, was certain that it went deeper. That what I saw tonight was only the visible tip of something bigger, older, and far crueler. I found the first clue on the desk in our bedroom. Nora had left her laptop bag half open. Inside, along with a tangle of pens and receipts, was a folded piece of paper. First, I thought it was a medical bill. Then I saw the heading, Short-Term Rental Payment Confirmation. It was for a loft on the other side of town. The charge had gone through on our shared credit card 2 weeks ago. The dates on the rental matched nights she'd claimed to be working overtime. I stared at the receipt, my hands shaking. The address was somewhere I'd never been. A converted warehouse district with trendy bars and rooftop decks. The kind of place you take someone when you want to feel hidden but not cheap. She'd never mentioned it. Never even hinted. I sat down at the desk, the paper trembling between my fingers. That's when I remembered the cloud storage. The hidden folders. I opened my laptop, logged into our shared account, and began searching. Most of the photos were harmless. Vacations, dinners, random sh*ts of our cat. But then, deep in a folder labeled Invoices, I found a video. It was only 24 seconds long. The thumbnail showed a car's interior, dimly lit. I clicked. The video started with the sound of laughter. Nora's laugh. She was in the back seat of a car, holding a glass of something sparkling. Her eyes were bright, her hair pulled back, the city sliding past the windows behind her. She raised the glass toward the camera and whispered, almost playfully, "Here's to bad decisions." Then she clinked glasses with someone out of frame. For a split second, the camera panned, catching the man's face. Just a glimpse, but it was enough. I froze. It was Ben. My chest went cold. My stomach dropped. I actually whispered his name out loud, like saying it would make it untrue. Ben. My friend from college. My roommate sophomore year. The guy who had once driven me to the ER at 2 a.m. when I'd cut my hand on a broken bottle. The guy who had stood in the third row at our wedding, smiling, clapping, raising his glass to us. The guy I'd trusted enough to bring into our home, into our lives. Ben. It wasn't just some anonymous man from the bar, some stranger from work. It was him. I watched the video 3 more times, as if maybe the pixels would shift and show me someone else. But it was him. The same dark hair, the same crooked smile, the same silver watch he'd been so proud of when he landed his first real job. The betrayal hit harder than anything at the hotel. Harder than the keycard. Harder than the cufflink. This wasn't just cheating. This was a collision of histories. My past, my marriage, my friendships, all crashing together in a single frame. I sat back, staring at the screen, and the memories started lining up like a cruel joke. The cufflink engraved with B. The unfamiliar cologne. Ben had always worn something expensive and woodsy. The nights Nora said she was working while Ben texted me vague excuses about being busy. The time he canceled our annual fishing trip at the last minute, saying he'd caught something better. How long had this been going on? Months? Years? Did it start as a one-time lapse, or was it always deliberate? Had they laughed about me? Whispered about me? Used our shared history as a cover for their meetings? I opened our shared messages, scrolling back through old group chats with Ben. So many casual jokes. So many photos of dinners, birthdays, nights out. His hand on my shoulder, Nora smiling at the camera. All of it rotted now. Every memory had a shadow. I tried to stand but couldn't. My knees felt weak. I sat there, staring at the video, my throat tight, my breath shallow. It was like a weight pressing down on my chest, but also like a door opening. A door to a reality I'd been trying not to see. And behind it, there was no ambiguity, no misunderstanding, no deflection. Just the truth. The betrayal wasn't random. It wasn't careless. It was woven directly into the fabric of our life. Into my past. Into the vows I'd taken and the friendships I'd built. It wasn't just a breach of trust. It was a theft. They had taken something from me that went deeper than love or loyalty. They had taken my story and rewritten it behind my back. I closed the laptop and set it aside. The apartment felt like a stage after the actors have left. Silent, echoing, stripped of meaning. I walked into the living room, sat on the edge of the couch, and stared at the wedding photo on the mantel. There we were, me, beaming, Nora, radiant, Ben in the background, standing just off to the side, a faint smile on his face. How many secrets were in that picture? I picked up the frame and turned it over. The cardboard backing had loosened over the years. Inside, Nora had written a note on the back of the print. To new beginnings and old friends. Forever. The words felt like a cruel joke now. Forever. I set the photo back down carefully, like it was fragile. Maybe it was. Maybe I was. Somewhere in the back of my mind, a small, detached voice whispered that I should call someone. My brother, my best friend from work, a lawyer, anyone. But I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't do anything but sit there and let the realization sink in. I hadn't just lost my wife. I'd lost one of the last people I thought I could trust. When the sun finally started to rise, its pale light slipping through the blinds, I felt hollow. Not angry yet, not sad, just empty. Like someone had reached inside and scooped me out, leaving only the shell of a man sitting in a too-quiet apartment. And deep down, I knew. This wasn't the end of the unraveling. It was only the beginning. The day after I saw that video, the one with Nora and Ben clinking glasses in the backseat of a car, smiling into secrets, I didn't go to work. I didn't call in. I didn't even turn off the alarm when it blared at 6:15. I just lay there in bed, staring at the ceiling, while Nora's side of the mattress remained perfectly made, untouched, cold. She hadn't come home. She didn't text. She didn't call. No, I'm sorry. No explanations. No attempts to clean up the wreckage. Nothing. Just silence. By noon, I started calling. Her cell went straight to voicemail. I tried her work number, no answer. I checked the hospital directory, asked for the floor supervisor. They hadn't seen her. Not since the beginning of the week. By 4 p.m. Panic tried to push its way through the anger, but it had nowhere to land. I told myself maybe she was at a friend's place. Maybe she needed time to process. Maybe she was embarrassed. Maybe she was thinking. But in my gut, I knew what this was: retreat. Not confusion. Not remorse. Just escape. She ran. She left me in the fallout without a single word. Her clothes were still in the closet. Her keys were gone, but her purse was on the kitchen counter, half open like she'd dropped it mid-movement. One of her shoes sat near the entry rug. The other was gone. It didn't look like someone packing for a trip. It looked like someone who'd fled. I moved through the apartment like I was underwater, checking closets, drawers, anything that might give me a clue about where she'd gone. Nothing. No note. No message. Just a quiet void where a person used to be. I opened the fridge out of instinct. A half-eaten salad. A bottle of white wine. A post-it on the middle shelf that said, "Ryan, don't eat my cake." Smiley face in her handwriting. I stared at that note for a long time. It felt ancient, like it belonged to a different version of us. I didn't take it down. I just closed the door. Eventually, I sat at the kitchen table with my hands folded, like I was waiting for someone to take my statement. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat there in the quiet, staring at the counter, trying to convince myself that I was still anchored to something solid. I wasn't. By nightfall, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed a pen, opened my drawer, and pulled out a piece of plain printer paper. I didn't think about it. I didn't revise or rewrite. I just let the words come out. "I'm leaving. Good luck." That was it. For words. I folded it in half and placed it beneath our wedding photo. The one that had survived every move, every argument, every anniversary. I took a picture of the note where it sat, time-stamped it, and uploaded it to the shared cloud drive. Not out of spite. Not to prove a point. It was documentation. Evidence. The only truth I had left to offer. Then I left the apartment. I didn't pack. I didn't take a bag. I just grabbed my phone and my wallet, locked the door behind me, and stepped out into the night. The air felt thin and damp, like it hadn't decided whether it wanted to rain or just keep threatening. I didn't have a destination. I just walked. I think I wandered for hours. My phone buzzed twice, both from work. I ignored them. Somewhere around midnight, I found myself outside a closed bookstore with the lights still glowing behind the security gates. I sat on a bench across the street and stared at the window display. Paperbacks poetry. A sign that said, "Escape into a better story." I wanted to laugh, but it caught in my throat. At 2:37 a.m., I got the first ping. It wasn't from Nora. It wasn't from anyone I knew. It was a voicemail from an unfamiliar number, area code from the same side of town where the short-term rental had been located. No name, just a 3-second pause. Then a raspy male voice, low and almost unsure. "She's not who you think she is. You need to stop looking." That was it. No explanation. No identity. Just that cryptic warning, like it had been dropped into my lap by someone who knew more than I did. Someone watching. Someone involved. I played it 5 times, each time trying to pick out background noise, tone, anything. The voice didn't sound like Ben's, but it didn't sound unfamiliar either. There was a tremble to it. Not fear exactly. More like guilt. Or regret. I saved the voicemail and uploaded it to the cloud next to the photo of my note. My message to Nora was already syncing across all devices connected to the account, including, most likely, Ben's. That thought hit me harder than expected. They'd see it. They'd open the cloud out of habit, maybe to hide another photo, maybe to delete something else. And there it would be, my forward exit, sitting under the one photo that was supposed to mean forever. That image alone would force something to crack. Whether they wanted it or not, the truth was now bleeding into their story. I pulled the curtain back. I didn't shout. I didn't storm in. I just left the truth sitting on a mantel. The next morning, I returned to the apartment. Still no Nora. But something was different. The wedding photo was gone. The note too. The space where they'd been looked freshly wiped, like someone had tried to erase their fingerprints. The air smelled like citrus cleaner and vanilla, the same combination Nora used when she was nervous cleaning before company arrived. She had been here. I moved through the apartment like a crime scene investigator, looking for signs of movement. The closet was half empty now. Clothes missing. Her overnight bag was gone. So was her tablet. And on the kitchen counter, right next to the espresso machine, was a glass with lipstick on the rim, her favorite deep rose color. The same shade from the video in the car. She hadn't planned to return. She had only come back to take what she wanted to keep. But I had taken something too. Not a thing, not an object, but a moment. A statement. That photo of my note in the cloud, visible on every device connected to our shared life, was a ticking time bomb. And by now, it had gone off. I don't know if Ben saw it first, or Nora, but I didn't have to wait long to know that it struck a nerve. Because by the afternoon, the voicemail had been deleted from my phone. Gone. Like it had never existed. But I still had the backup. And in that moment, it all became terrifyingly clear. This wasn't just an affair. This wasn't 2 people who made a mistake. This was something orchestrated. Carefully. Quietly. Like a second life threaded through the one I thought we were building together. And now that I had stepped out of the script, everything was unraveling. Faster than they could control. When Nora returned, she was calm. Eerily so. No apology, no tears. Just a letter addressed to Ben. Admitting she had planned to leave long before I knew. The hotel key, the video, the cufflink, they weren't accidents. She didn't deny it. She didn't explain. Our marriage had ended in silence. Not with a bang, but with a door quietly closing behind a woman who had already moved on. I left with only my wallet and phone. Portland became home. Kat kept me company. Writing became therapy. That note I left on the counter? It became the first line of my story. Months later, I met Harper. No lies, no locked phones, no cover stories. Just honesty. The note that ended everything also began something better. I didn't just lose a marriage. I found myself again.